Hello guys, Doc Hydro here. I'm out doing a video as to why it's important to pay attention to what's going on in your environment, because things may not necessarily be what you think they are. So, for example, you can see off in the distance here, we've got a rural Nevada town's water supply. You can also see over here that we've got power lines, so you think, hey, you know, we're good. And then you also have right here access to a fire hydrant. So you could be sitting here thinking to yourself, hey, this is perfect. We've got power, we've got water, we've got access to it. And even though that we're out in the middle of nowhere, what could go wrong? Well, I'm going to show you exactly what could go wrong. Let's assume for the moment you end up having some catastrophic disaster, something that you don't foresee. And while a lot of people might sit here and think that some of these things is kind of wild and outlandish to be real, it could happen. So let's assume for the moment that something happens where you lose power, or you have, like in an area that you're prone to, like in California that's prone to earthquakes, you have a major earthquake that ruptures all of your underground lines. And it happens to take out some power distribution substations at the same time. So you might be sitting on those water tanks back there, but you may not have a way to pull water out of the tanks necessarily, unless it's got some external valves right up against the edge of the tank. Most of them run through feed lines like what I just showed you. So keep that in mind while we go up the road and I show you what you could be facing. We're exactly 3 miles up the road, further into the canyon from where we were just at the town's water tanks. Now I'm gonna stop the video and I'm gonna turn around and show you where I'm at. This is about the end of the line. But while we also do that, I want you to also be thinking about something. If the chances of a rural town's water supply being compromised or put out of commission is slim to none, I want you to think to yourself, why would I ask you to be thinking about it? Okay, so now that I've got that thought in your mind, back down that way 3 miles is town, just on the other side of that little knob right there. Right over here is about the area that you have for turning around water tenders and some heavier engines. Guys, back to our session now. We're almost 1,000 feet in. We're not quite 1,200 feet. But you've got a creek that's flowing, and up over here off to this left side, you have enough room to where you could successfully navigate a Type 4 or a Type 3 engine right here. So all the way back coming down up over the knob, because at the top of that hill is where the cattle guard is. From there all the way down into here is just about 1,000 feet. So even if it's under 1,200 foot, I would still put an engine here to get set up for relay, because our sim fire is back up in there another 3,600 feet away. And again, we're out of seats. They got diverted to a critical immediate need, and we've got one helicopter that can be used back in there, but there's no place locally close by to pull water. So we have to set up a dip site. And right now it doesn't look too bad for engines to come in and out of here, but you're not going to get tenders to come in and out of here. I'll show you that in just a second. Also, just to give you an idea of the flow of the stream, right there is where that's going down at, and you could easily block this up down there and throw a draft line in, so if you had to augment your pump in between a relay operation, you could still do it. Okay guys, back in the vehicle. We're headed up that road. We're at 3/10 of a mile in now. And something that I wanted to tell you is that every 1/10 of a mile is 528 feet. So if you have 2/10 of a mile, that's 1,056 feet. So if you wanted to use your odometer to determine how to gauge how far out to space engines, and you needed to put them every 1,200 feet, just go 2/10 of a mile. 1,056 feet, back it off a little bit, you can get another 100 foot in there, then you'd have 1,156. You know, so that's close enough. But one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the type of road as to why you're not going to want to do tender shuttle relays, and why you're not going to want engines to keep coming in and out of roads, and why I try to impress so much about the use of relay pumping operations all the time. And so let me turn this camera around. Also, what I want to do is I want you to be aware of things like this, very narrow canyons, okay? Sagebrush, steep ravines, rocks that hide in between the sagebrush along here. And I'm not trying to get into a how to drive video, but again, I'm trying to impress upon the aspect of why relays can come in extremely handy and why it's going to be important to learn how to do them. So we'll go up to the half-mile mark, and well, actually we're at the half-mile mark now. We're at 5/10 of a mile. So when I get to 6/10 of a mile, I'm going to stop and get out. Okay, we're at 6/10 of a mile now, guys. So as you can see right here, plenty of room to put another engine, and then you've also got another creek here, and so this actually works out pretty good. So again, if for some reason you needed to set up a portable pump, or wanted to put up a little portable pump to help augment your tank water when the relay's down, or for dust abatement, whatever you needed, you've got it right here. But this is the canyon, and as you can see, it's Coral Canyon, by the way, but as you can see, there's not a lot of room to turn around in here. And so you got to come all the way about a half-mile in straight up the road before you can turn around. But this is not going to be something that you're going to want to really bring a water truck up in here through. And right up against that edge right there, you can see that rock. Now, for a lot of us wildland tender guys, especially agency, the pumps and fuel tanks and battery boxes and whatnot, they can hang down pretty low. So even though that you might have plenty of road height, once you drop off, as you guys already know, you're going to hang up a fuel tank or something else on that. So it's not a good idea to keep tracking back and forth up through here. Okay, I wanted to stop and take this opportunity at 7/10 of a mile, or almost 3/4, in from where we originally started, right there at the cattle guard. So one of the things that I want to say that I think is absolutely imperative, always make sure that if you set up a relay, make sure that where at all possible, all of your engines are on the same side of the road. The reason for this is that it makes it nice and easy so that you can keep the hose on one side of the road. The more that you crisscross hose, the more you have a chance of running over it. Otherwise, you got to dig up a portion of the road to lay the hose into it so that when engines drive over it, they don't put holes into it. And the reason why I'm doing this is so that those that do not have a lot of experience driving, especially the water tenders or engines, or it's their first year, they'll have a better idea as to what I'm getting at. So we come around up here, and we're going to go through this, but you can see to where it's been kind of blocked up. Some people tried to stop the water here from running down the road and washing it out. So it's all running down in here. We're going to go through this, but if you see up over there on the end, those rocks right there, this guy and this one, that poses problems to water tenders. So, and then obviously, you know, it's not a good idea to keep shuttling engines back and forth. You run the risk of taking out tires and axles. All right, guys, going through one of the tighter areas and recording this section so that you can see just exactly how tight it is. Now, my Expedition obviously isn't quite as large as a Type 4 engine is, or Type 3, but it's got the width, it doesn't have the height. But this is what I'm getting at. There's that boulder right there. So that means that you've already got to hug the side of the road to get by that. So this is why I keep bringing this up. You learn the skills and you think of operations like this and environments like this, you can very easily take care of anything. Now, if we had our dip site just up in the flat up ahead here, you could pump water all the way down from where those storage tanks were. So it's something that you can do. So you've got what I showed you in this video when I was telling you, think about what you would do if those tanks got compromised. Set yourself up with the ability to have an aux pump augment your tanks. And then at least that way you have the ability to still move water through a relay and take advantage of each engine's pumping capacity or power, but it might be a little slower, but you're not down and out. Okay guys, we are now at our spot, and we are exactly 5 miles in from the cattle guard where we started. So I'm gonna flip the camera around and show you what I'm looking at. Okay, so looking to the south, all this area up in here is, as you can see, it's got some pretty good fuel loading here. This road here takes off and just goes to an old inactive mine. If you continue along this cut and go in between that mountain and this knob, you'll go in through there, and then that will eventually take you off over into Lander County area. But right in here is where the Simfire helicopter dip site would be. You would basically take and clean off all of that because there's no riparian stuff there. That's all grass from like snow runoff. The actual creek and whatnot that runs down is down up over on that side. But right here is not too bad. I didn't film it coming up, but there is a really nasty, almost a 1/4 mile long rock patch of, it's just rock. The road is just nothing but rock, and it's pretty sharp. So this is what I'm talking about. So 5 miles in, if you did it right, it would only take 3 engines that could move 250 gallons a minute at 150 psi, spaced out 9,000 feet apart, to move 90 gallons a minute to fill a tank or whatever. But that's just, I just use 90 gallons a minute as an example. The 90 gallons a minute, like I said, is just an example. It comes down ultimately what your helicopters are going to be pulling and where they're going to be flying to around here. Again, I set this up this way because I want people to start thinking, I want people to stop always pulling the trigger and the go-to of helicopters and seats and tankers and VLATs all the time, because we're getting ourselves boxed into a canyon, as I would call it, from the standpoint that we're always relying on it and we're not honing in on critical skills. Critical skills like how to get water. Now, the issue of getting water 5 miles in requires a 4-inch diameter line. We don't carry 4-inch in federal service. I would highly suggest that people start thinking about getting 4-inch line. Most fire departments around America have a minimum 5-inch high vol and 6-inch, but they have adapters that can go from that down to a 4-inch. And not only that, most of our federal wildland tenders carry 4-inch draft line, and we have 4-inch intakes. Some of you type 3s are carrying 4-inch intakes on 500 GPM pumps. Let's use what's already on the apparatus and ensure that we're not shooting ourselves in the foot by not being able to do a relay. It might cost a lot of money, but think about how much money we're spending to have a tanker sit on a call when needed contract. So I would really want to sit here and advocate, hey, relays is where it's at. Now, one individual asked me, like with this hill behind me, I posted a picture a while back and somebody said, well, you know, I see these steep hills, but you know what, there's no way you can get water up there. Let me show you what I would do. Okay, just using my own personal vehicle as a size or a perception point of view, so you have something to go by. You look at this straight over and then it's up. So let's say you needed to get water up to where you can barely see it, but right along here there's a shelf, like a bench, okay? And then it goes back and then up again. Well, let's say you just need to get water up there. Well, you figure out what that is from there down to here at the road, just like you would anything else. You know that from that point there, what I would do is start up there and figure out what's my elevation. If I've got 600 feet to, let's say, just halfway down, I know that that's 300 PSI to that point right there.
I can use, realistically, single jacketed hose from that point up. But from here down and coming into engines, I would go to the Durapack high-rise hose. If you go to Durapack high-rise hose, you would series pump from engine to engine to boost the pressure, and then run your high-rise hose out until the pressure falls off. Once the pressure falls off, switch over to your single jacket and let it carry the rest of the way up. Then you have your water going up there. That's also critical on the other aspect, which is, you guessed it, now your flow demand. So you got the head pressure, the flow, and then if you got a nozzle. If there's no nozzle up there, let's say it's going to go into, let's say you have a helicopter drop off a porta tank or something up there, hey, you could fill a small pumpkin up there with that, and then you would always have water for whatever you needed. The sky's the limit. Think outside the box.